In this movie, I'll show you how to apply special fill and stroke attributes from the appearance panel to live editable text, because it's a little bit weird the way it works. And in the end, we'll get this effect right here. So I'm going to start off the usual way by going up to the File menu and choosing New from Template. Then I'll go ahead and double-click on that Center Guides document. And just to give us a background to work on here, I'm going to go ahead and press Control-0 or Command-0 on the Mac to zoom out. And then I'll go up to the View menu and make sure my Smart Guides are turned on, which they aren't. So I'll go ahead and turn them on. Notice that they have a keyboard shortcut of Control-U or Command-U on the Mac, which I'll probably use in just a moment, because Smart Guides end up lighting up text in a weird way. And now I'll go ahead and grab my rectangle tool, and I'll drag from one corner of the bleed boundary to the other corner like so, in order to create a big rectangle. And then I'll press the V key to switch back to the black arrow tool, so I'm not seeing any of those live shape widgets. And then I'll set the stroke to none, and I'll change the fill color to this fairly dark purple that begins R equals 102 in order to produce this effect here. All right, and this will just give us a backdrop, like I say, to work against. All right, I don't really need the guide, so I'll go ahead and turn the guides layer off, and I'll zoom in just a little bit. And I'll deselect the rectangle by pressing Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac. And I'll switch to the Type tool, which of course I can get by pressing the T key. All right, now I want to dial in some settings in advance just to make things easier later on. And I'm working with the default font, Myriad Pro. Regular is the style we want. And I'm going to go ahead and crank the type size value up to 336. I'll set the leading value to 306. And then I'll tab my way over to the tracking value and set it to 100. I'm looking for optical kerning, by the way, so I'll just go ahead and change that option from auto to optical, and then I'll turn on all caps. All right, now I'll just click someplace close to the center of the image here, and I'll enter deep type like so. And apparently I forgot to do something. I knew I'd forget something this time around. But anyway, there's deep type on two separate lines. Let's go ahead and center that text by going up here to this option, Align Center, and clicking on it up here in the control panel. And I want my text to be white as well, so I'll change the fill color from black to white. All right, now let's say I want to add a big black stroke, and so I'll go ahead and change it to something enormous, like say 50 is what I'll ultimately want. And that completely covers up the letters, which is not what I want. So I'll switch over to the Appearance panel, which of course I can get to by choosing Appearance from the window menu, and I'm not even seeing my fill and stroke options. Well, part of the reason is the type object is selected rather than the characters. So I'll just go ahead and double click on characters, and that will light up the text as we're seeing. That goes ahead and selects it and shows me that the stroke is on top and the fill is at the bottom. So I'll go ahead and drag the stroke from the top to the bottom, and it just fails to work. You just can't do it. And that's because we're approaching the whole process wrong. We need to apply the fill and stroke attributes to the type object as opposed to the characters to get this to work. So I'll just press the Escape key. And what you really want to do, if you want any sort of special control over your text, is change both the stroke and the fill to none. And that's going to make the text invisible. Don't worry about it. Now what you want to do is go over to the Appearance panel once again, make sure the type object is selected, which it should be, and then drop down to either the Add New Fill or Add New Stroke icon. It doesn't matter which one, and just go ahead and click on it. And you'll see that we now have no fill and a black stroke. Or at least it's kind of black. It's actually kind of a weak black right now. What I'm going to do is change it to white, actually, and I'm going to crank it up to 30 points. And the method to my madness will make sense in just a moment. We do have a few cracks in the letters, and we can fill those in using the good old fills. So I'll go ahead and select fill right there. Now, my purpose in creating this white stroke, which I'll go ahead and put in back of the fill, it doesn't really matter, but I'm going to go ahead and do that. What I want to do is round off the characters, and I can do that by clicking on stroke and then setting the corner to round join like so. And that gives me some rounded type. And because we have this big, thick stroke, it also makes the type bolder, as we're seeing right here. All right, now I want to add that black edge that we're seeing right here. Notice how it's offset. And this is why I don't like working with Smart Guides, by the way, when text is active, because you end up highlighting the letters when you're anywhere near them. So I'm going to press Control-U or Command-U on the Mac to turn them off. And now I'll show you right there, we've got this thick edge that we're trying to create using a stroke. And so I'll go ahead and switch over to my text in progress. And I'll add a new stroke, which I can do by clicking on this Add New Stroke icon in the bottom left corner of the Appearance panel, or I could take advantage of that keyboard shortcut of Control-Alt/. All right, now I'll change this stroke to black, and I will increase the line weight value to 50 points, so it's really huge, and I'll drag it down to the bottom of the stack like so. All right, at this point it's uniform. I want to offset it, so I'll go ahead and click on this stroke, drop down to the FX icon in the bottom left corner of the Appearance panel, choose Distort and Transform, and then choose the Transform command to bring up the Transform Effect dialog box. Now I'll go ahead and turn on the Preview checkbox, and I'll just go ahead and change the horizontal value to 5, and I'll set the vertical value to 5 as well. So that moves that stroke 5 points to the left as well as 5 points down, which produces this kind of extruded edge. And now I'll click OK to accept that change. All right, now I want to center my text on the artboard. And so I'll go ahead and click on the word Align over here on the right side of the control panel. I'll make sure Align to is set to artboard, which it is for me. And then I'll click on Horizontal Align Center and Vertical Align Center as well, even though that kind of knocks it up too high. So I'll press Shift down arrow a couple of times to move that text downward. And finally, let's go ahead and give it a drop shadow. Notice this bottom stroke has a transform effect applied to it. I want to give it a drop shadow as well by clicking on the FX icon, choosing Stylize, and then choosing Drop Shadow. And I figure the default settings are just fine. You can check them out by turning on a Preview checkbox, but I'm just going to click OK in order to accept that change. And then I'll press Control-Shift-A or Command-Shift-A on the Mac in order to deselect my type. So just remember, if you want to add some special fill and stroke attributes to live editable text, don't do it up here in the control panel. Instead, add your fill and stroke attributes here inside the Appearance panel.